Hi guys, Darth Deuces here, back with another Star Wars The Black Series action figure review. Today taking a look at probably one of my most anticipated figures of this year by a mile. It is the Black Series Gaming Greats Deluxe Darth Malgus. I'm super excited this came out. This is like kind of like a dream come true kind of figure for me in the Black Series. This is the character I'd always wanted them to make in this 6-inch Black Series. I never thought they would, if I'm being completely honest. Star Wars: The Old Republic, the video games time is kind of come and gone. It still exists, but it doesn't have there's no real hype or popularity, huge popularity behind it these days. It's not like in the limelight anymore. But yeah, we got the figure, man, and yeah, I got a lot of good things to say. A little bit of spoiler, a lot of good things to say. It's just been for me personally, anyway, it's been a really crazy year for just getting like figures that I just did not expect to ever really get. There's multiple Black Series figures that came out, like the Darth Malak, the Bastila, even as far back earlier this year, the Mara Jade, a bunch of characters I just never thought that Hasbro would make in the Black Series. Transformers, another line where we got a bunch of characters I just never thought we'd make. They make like fully newly tooled Transformers Armada, Optimus Prime, Megatron, a couple other characters like Tarn finally getting their own figures and that sort of thing. Just been a really good year for that sort of thing. So at least for me. But yeah, take a quick look at the box here. It is in the plastic-free packaging. It's probably one of the last figures that's going to use this packaging because we're going back to the window packaging, which is good. But it's got a CG kind of render of the figure on the front, the gaming grade sticker, Darth Malgus, pretty nice image of Malgus on the side there. Oops. Another same image of Malgus. Brief write up there. If you want to read that, go ahead. Pause and go ahead. Then the showcasing the figure. He does stand 7 inches tall, and he's got his lightsaber, which is also pretty big. And there's not too much else to talk about. I got this at GameStop. I had a pre-order in there, but it's not exclusive to GameStop. You can get it. It's fan channel and all that, so you can get it online, retail, and all that jazz. That's it for the box. So now let's take a look at the figure. And I will say I am pretty impressed with what we got here. This is maybe one of the few Black Series Deluxe figures where I can say I can get behind the price point. Like, I did not mind paying what I paid for this. Is it still like pretty expensive? Yeah, it's an expensive figure. In Canadian dollars, after my 10% off at the GameStop, because I'm a Platinum Edge member, still $50 for this in 7-inch figure. But these days, that's getting unfortunately increasingly more normal. It just is what it is. But yeah, there are just some times where I'm just looking at this figure, and sometimes I can hardly believe this is even from the Black Series. It's the same line as some other figures we've gotten. Because it's really, really good. It's not perfect, I am pretty biased. I really like this character, so I'm gonna really like the figure, and it's something I've always wanted from him. But I won't always wear the rose-colored tinted lenses. There are some things I think could have been done to give the figure a little more value and that sort of thing. But taking a closer look, the first thing is the soft goods. Probably one of the best soft goods hoods I've ever seen. It actually sits pretty naturally over the head, and how they achieve that is they actually glued down or like stitched down or whatever the ends of the hood, so it actually looks like it's falling naturally. Because with a lot of Black Series 6-inch soft goods hoods, the fabric's just not heavy enough to really drape down, so it doesn't look right, but they've actually fixed that by sticking it down so it will create the illusion. And I think it looks really good. And then the cape itself, nice enough material. It flows nicely down on the figure. It looks good. I got not much else to say about that. Of course, you can pull the hood back. I guess one small downside is because it is stitched up down there, it doesn't like all fold back, so it gets a little bunched up in the back, but it's not a big deal. I don't mind that trade-off. And you get what I would say an absolutely killer head sculpt and face print. They went all out on this one. It's probably one of my favorite head sculpts and faces in the entire Black Series line. I think it looks phenomenal. It looks super close to the CG models used in the trailers that I'm sure many people are familiar with. The camera's actually having a hard time focusing because he's bald and very pale, and my lamp, it's kind of reflecting off of him a bit there. But just in person, you can't really fully appreciate it until you see it in person. It looks really good. He's got the veins on the forehead, and he's got his brow is wrinkled a bit, but it's very subtle. It looks really good. He's got the shadowing around the eyes for like the dark side degradation, but it's not overdone. It looks good. You can see the bit of scarring on the side there, which we'll get a closer look at in a bit. Just very, very good. And I like that the face sculpt has personality. It's not just a normal stoic. He looks like intense, man. It looks really good. I like it a lot. The mask looks good as well. It's got a decent amount of paint apps on it of different silver and then the little red there. I think it looks good. The mask is removable. I'll do it in a bit because you have to actually pop off the head to get it off, which is not something I was expecting. I thought it would work differently. I thought maybe just pull it off and attach in the back. It does attach in the back, but it's one solid piece. There's no cut or break in it. But next up, you got the chest armor, looking pretty good with some decent paint apps there, some silver, red, and black. Figure is 100% new tooling and sculpting, which is great. The shoulder pads look good. They are on the same like system that like Stormtrooper shoulder pads are on, where the ring is sandwiched between the joint and the torso, so it'll move with the arm, which is good. They are made of a pretty flexible plastic as well, so they won't get in the way of articulation too much. One small complaint I'll have, which is mainly present in the shoulder pads, but you'll see throughout the figure, is they didn't add any weathering. The old 3¼ inch finished collection Darth Malgus had a lot of kind of subtle silver brushing and whatnot to really bring out the details and make the armor look a bit more worn. I do wish they would have done that here, especially for that deluxe price point. I think they could have done a bit more of that weathering on here, because the armor and the suit does look a little clean, I will say. Maybe someday I might try my hand at adding a bit of silver brushing to it, but it still looks good. It's just I think it does look a little too clean. Then the rest of the armor just looks pretty nice. This belt is painted nicely with a bunch of silver details. They even painted on the back here a fair amount of paint, which looks nice. Forearms, you got all these little doodads and buttons and whatnot painted, which look good. The legs, again, I think the shin armor could have used a bit more paint, but it's not too bad. And the boots, you got peg holes at the bottom of the feet. I like that they did still sculpt kind of the ridges into the joints, and they sculpted the fabric wrinkling detail into the joints here as well, which is nice, so they don't look too out of place. Just a really excellent looking figure. Could have used a bit more weathering. I won't say it's perfect, but it's pretty good. And yeah, this figure just looks absolutely phenomenal. I love the proportions as well. He's tall, he's bulky. You know, Darth Malgus is a beast of a person in the game. He towers over other characters, and they really did kind of nail that here with this figure, which I'll get into with some comparisons later. In terms of articulation, you have a dumbbell joint in the neck, so he can look up a bit. He looks down a little bit. If you don't have the mask on, he'll look down more. Pivots a bit, and then rotation. You will have a bit of hindrance there with all the stuff going on, but it's not too bad. Do have shoulder hinges, which you can get out pretty close to 90. There is a butterfly joint. You do get a bit of movement. It's not too crazy, because Black Series just never is, but it is there. Single hinges at the elbow move quite far in, which is really nice, especially considering how bulky this character is with all the armor and whatnot. We get a decent bend there. Swivel wrists with a up and down hinge at the right hand lightsaber grip hand, which is really good to see. And then on this hand, it is in and out. This hand also is sculpted a bit differently than the right one. It's sculpted to kind of have like a trigger hand / like force choke hand, so that's kind of cool. So you get that. There's a torso joint, 2 torso joints similar to Darth Malak, which is kind of cool. You can arch back a bit, goes forward, crunches forward actually pretty decently for a Black Series figure, honestly, especially for his bulk. Pivot's pretty good, and you do get rotation. The only thing is the rotation's a little weird. It kind of wants to like spring forward, as you can kind of see. I pull it around and then I let go, and it kind of wants to spring back forward. That's a little odd, but it's not a huge deal. It's got the excuse me, new style hip joints. They go out all the way, and then they've got this big like groove cut, like circular groove cut, so they don't have to do a swivel cut at the thigh. Instead, you can kind of shift the joint at the ball joint instead, which I think works really well for Malgus. They didn't have to make a cut here to kind of ruin the sculpt of the armor, so that's good. Single hinges at the knees, they go about 90. That's all you really need. And then hinges at angles go up a lot, go down enough, I would say, and then ankle rocker for pivot. So yeah, great articulation. You'll be able to get this guy in a lot of really good posing, and it all feels pretty good to pose for the most part. I will say, I feel like the neck joint is a little on the loose side. It's not too crazy. It's not like super loose where it'll just flop all over the place, but it's pretty easy to move. And it makes me a little hesitant about the whole system having to remove the head to take off the mask. I hope that doesn't wear out the joints and makes it looser and looser over time. Hope that's not the case, but we'll just have to see. Speaking of which, moving on to accessories, I will remove the mask now because I will consider it one of his accessories. I got the mask off him. It is a little fiddly to do. It's more fiddly to get it on than to get it off, honestly. But yeah, you get to get a better look at what's underneath. And that looks absolutely incredible. I love that he's got a bit of a smirk going on, the similar smirk to the trailer when he's looking over at Jace Malcolm when he's stabbing one of his compatriots. He's kind of got the same smirk going on. I think that's just super awesome. Like I said, this head sculpt's got a lot of personality. You've got that scarring there, which looks good. I also like how the eyes, it's maybe a little hard to tell, but they actually made the eyes glossy, but the rest of the face luckily does not have the gloss that a lot of face printed black figures have. So it makes them look more like realistic eyes. That's very cool. The one thing I will point out though is that the scarring, the lines where the scarring starts and ends is a bit too abrupt. It's like just like a straight line, like almost like Two-Face. It's a bit too abrupt, doesn't look kind of natural enough. So I kind of wish it would have looked a little more rougher and a little more natural, but it's not a big deal. It still looks pretty good. And then for his other accessory, he does come with his lightsaber. It is very big. It is larger than a standard lightsaber for another character, so it scales with the figure. It doesn't look too like small, I guess. So it's pretty monstrous, and it's really cool though. Nice red blade. The hilt always has been one of my favorite lightsaber hilt designs for a long time now. It's got a little bit of black or really dark gray plastic at the grip, or coloring at the grip and here around these blades. You can remove the blade. However, there is nowhere to store the hilt on the belt, which is a bit unfortunate, but I don't like it when hilts have pegs on them, so I don't really mind it. And then he can hold it. He holds it just fine. Just slide it in his hand there. And you have him holding it. You can get two-handed poses pretty easily, and it looks really good. Pose them up real quick. Get a sense. So there you go. But that goes into one of my other small criticisms with the figure, is that I do wish he came with a little more stuff. And it didn't have to come with much more, but it would have been nice to see interchangeable hands. I really feel like that's something that should become more regular, common practice with Star Wars Black Series figures, especially like Force wielders. I wish at the very least would have came with some open hands, make it looking like he's doing a Force push or something. And even some closed fists, I think, would have went a long way with this figure. I think that would have worked out really well too. So it's a little unfortunate. I do wish they would have included that sort of stuff. But it's not a massive deal for me. Definitely not a deal breaker. But I guess there's not too much to say except for comparisons. So I guess first off, just with some other Black Series figures, here is a figure recently reviewed and is honestly kind of similar in design. Here's Darth Malak. And Darth Malak is also a pretty tall figure for an average Black Series figure, and Malgus still is a fair amount taller than him, about half a head taller than him, which I think is pretty cool. So there's that. And then here he is with the old Darth Revan. He's super tall, much taller than Revan. Like, he towers over Revan. And then here he is with another Old Republic Sith that I forgot to compare when I did my Darth Malak review. Here's Darth Nihilus with Kylo Ren legs. And yeah, again, towers over him. It's kind of unfortunate. Darth Nihilus kind of got the shit end of the stick with out of all the releases. He's the one that kind of got the most compromised when they just did retooling instead of giving a whole new mold. Bit unfortunate. And then here he is with Hasbro's other Darth Malgus figure. Here's the old original TVC figure. So you can see them. Still a pretty good figure. This is definitely one of my favorites in the 3 3/4 inch collection. It always will be. Um, but this figure is dated. The articulation is definitely not as good as it could be. It's very limiting, especially considering the character. Um, the face paint looked good for the time. It still looks good now, but there's just things about this face I don't like how he has these huge uh, dark circles around his eyes that are so heavy-handed, and of course my camera doesn't want to focus on it. Super heavy-handed and look kind of weird, like he hasn't slept in like a month, as opposed to just being a lot more subtle, like the new figure. And obviously this one's face print and is more accurate. But you can see kind of stuff I was talking about, like this figure has like a little bit of silver on the shoulders. I guess he doesn't really have any weathering anywhere else, but still, even that little bit of silver scuffing on the shoulder I think would have been nice on the new one. And then lastly, the other, as far as I know, the only other articulated Darth Malgus figure that they ever did. Here he is with the Sideshow Collectibles 1/6 scale Darth Malgus, which was a grail of mine. I bought this a couple, 2 or 3 years ago now, honestly. It's been a while. And yeah, you just kind of see how they stack up. Yeah, trying to wrap this up, I guess, because it's kind of a long video. I kind of apologize for that, but I just had a lot of stuff to say about this figure. Yeah, the 6 scale figure is like cool, but it's pretty. I think it's pretty expensive on the aftermarket now because it's kind of rare to come by. And the 6 scale figures has a lot of things going against it. Like it's a Sideshow figure, not a Hot Toys figure, and if you're not familiar, Sideshow figures made by Sideshow are notoriously not nearly as good quality as Hot Toys made figures. The articulation's fairly limiting. Some joints feel straight up scary to bend in fear of breaking them. Malgus also has a pleather suit underneath the armor, and in multiple spots mine's starting to degrade. It's got flaking around the crotch area, it's got flaking around the shoulders and the elbows as well. Basically anywhere where there's a joint bending, it's got flaking, which is really annoying, but stuff not supposed to last forever anyways. I'm also not a huge fan of the proportions of the 6 scale figure. I feel like he's not quite tall enough and that he's not quite bulky enough. Like his legs are too slender. Yeah, stuff like that. But he still has a really nice looking head sculpt, especially for Sideshow. They can be hit or miss with that, but it's really good. And he also has the interchangeable hands that the Black Series doesn't. But yeah, there's that. Overall, though, I think this Deluxe Black Series Darth Malgus is an absolute home run from Hasbro. They really killed it with this one, I think. He's not perfect for sure, but he's still really, really good. Definitely my favorite, 100%. I doubt anything's going to beat this as my #1 favorite Black Series figure of the year. Absolutely excellent. And if you're a fan of the character, I mean, if you're collecting Black Series, 100% recommend either way. If you collect Black Series, you should definitely get this one. But even if you don't collect Black Series, but you're a fan of the character, I would definitely recommend buying this figure. If you're a fan of the character, you'll absolutely love it. I would say it is the best articulated figure you can get of Darth Malgus out on the market to date now. There's statues, of course, but in terms of articulated figures, I think it's better than the 6 scale because it's not nearly as expensive and it's a lot more fun to pose and it's not going to fall apart on you. And then I think it's better than 3 3/4 inch because, again, it looks better, has better articulation. Yeah, I just think overall, they all have their merits, but overall, I think this one is the best. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. I apologize, this is a long video. I just had a lot to talk about, though. I'm really happy with this figure, and I'll see you all in the next video. May the Force be with you.